Resident Evil and Silent Hill are the two biggest, most influential and most successful horror gaming franchises ever, creating plenty of great and innovative games that are still relevant today. But even though I will put both franchises on the same level, it's very apparent how Resident Evil is clearly the more successful series, especially because it not only has the better sales, more players and slightly better critic scores, but also more than like 2 games in the past 10 years, in contrast to Silent Hill. While Silent Hill pretty much died in the early 2010s, Resident Evil recovered and is now better than ever. Of course, the greatly acclaimed Silent Hill 2 remake released at the end of 2024, and that might be the turning point for the series to finally become as relevant as in the early 2000s again, but the other Silent Hill projects that released in the recent past weren't even remotely from that quality, so it's yet to be seen what the future holds for the series. But what are the reasons for this? Let's find out. It's important to improve, adapt and innovate every now and then to stay relevant and to have success over a long period of time. I mean, no one likes playing pretty much the same game over and over again, with the same formula, same combat, same enemies and so on. Obviously, the game should resemble what the franchise is known for and build on that to improve further and not just grab the whole idea every time, but I think you get the idea. Anyway, Resident Evil is absolutely fantastic in this regard. Unfortunately, Silent Hill is not so much. While the former innovated the whole gaming space again and again, for example with the freaking invention of survival horror, the switch to the over-the-shoulder camera with Resident Evil 4, and the recent trend of remakes, Silent Hill remained pretty much stuck to the same ideas after Team Silent's disbandment. And don't get me wrong, Team Silent put lots of great ideas into the first 4 games and did a lot to innovate and keep things fresh, for example with the vastly different stories and characters between games. But after the switch to external Western developers, there was always the same idea of Silent Hill projecting the evil secrets of the characters, random Pyramid Head rip-offs, weird new nurses with even more revealing clothes, and so on. And every time they tried something new and different, it felt more like a step back and didn't improve the overall experience. For example, the constantly bad to at best mediocre combat systems that were already a problem in the Team Silent games, and just somehow felt even worse with every new entry. And the one game that didn't suffer from bad combat, Silent Hill Shattered Memories, arguably only did so because it had none. And apart from that, it was also just a loose reimagining of Silent Hill 1, so it didn't offer much new either. Resident Evil had some rough years in the early 2010s, with RE6 being arguably the lowest point of the mainline game so far, but even then the games felt more polished and inspired than the late Silent Hill games. Especially Homecoming and Downpour feel incredibly uninspired and more like a bad Resident Evil clone than Silent Hill. There was more combat, which as I said wasn't even good, dumbed down puzzles, worse horror and a lack of the great atmosphere Silent Hill is known for. During this time, Silent Hill was basically a worse Silent Hill inspired Resident Evil, while Resident Evil wasn't particularly great itself. And even then, Resident Evil managed to gain a new audience of people who liked the action and wouldn't have played them if they were proper survival horror games like before. Silent Hill in contrast just managed to lose the fans of the original games while barely attracting any new ones. And just like Resident Evil, I also want to gain a new audience, so please consider subscribing if you're enjoying this video, especially because a lot of you seem to haven't so far, even though you watch the videos. Thank you. This time also showed how much more consistent Resident Evil has been over the years. I would rank the first 3 Silent Hill games and the recent Silent Hill 2 remake as high as my favorite Resident Evil games, while the worst Silent Hills aren't even close to my least favorite Resident Evils. Silent Hill 4, Origins and Shattered Memories are still alright to a varying amount in my opinion, but overall the series suffered from massive up and downs in quality. The only aspect that remained consistently great was the soundtrack from Akira Yamaoka. And it's great that it's great, but it's not great that it's the only great aspect that remained great. Although the biggest reason for this quality drop is arguably Konami, that were and are still doing a horrible job at taking care of the franchise. Capcom develops most Resident Evil games in-house with very talented people who are familiar with the series and know what they are doing. Konami on the other hand is giving the IP to plenty of developers, some of which seem completely random, that have nothing to do with the franchise or Konami. By the way, this is still the case now with the new Silent Hill games, making it pretty much impossible to judge the future of the franchise, because literally every game is developed by completely different people. So in conclusion, one of the biggest reasons for the difference in success is the bad and inconsistent quality of Silent Hill games compared to Resident Evil, caused by having inexperienced developers, uninspired and badly executed ideas, and the waste of Silent Hill's strengths. Another big reason is simply the overall tone and appeal of the games. Resident Evil is in general very goofy and fun. Most of the characters and their motives are cliché. For example, the Umbrella Corporation is literally just evil for the sake of being evil, especially if we consider that they were already incredibly successful in being a normal company, but still decided to do research on evil bioweapons because why not? Additionally, most of the protagonists are also basically action heroes who just want to save the day, drop some cool one-liners and are pretty much flawless. Apart from that, the gameplay is usually fairly simple and accessible. Gunplay is fun, the controls feel good and intuitive, the puzzles can be challenging but are never too hard, there are some spooky environments and enemies but never anything too bad, and some look even pretty cool, and at the end of the game everyone is happy and we fly into the sunset with some epic music. And then there's Silent Hill, basically being the complete opposite. Apart from the epic music, I love me some Angel Thanatos right after getting depressed from Mary's letter.
You made me happy.
No, but seriously. In opposite to Resident Evil, there are more mature and complex stories with extremely flawed characters and topics like abortion, suicide and the murdering of loved ones. Additionally, the gameplay is arguably less appealing and accessible for most people, although the core is similar. There are hundreds of locked doors, big areas, less guidance on what to do, some very hard and cryptic puzzles, the worst combat, clunky controls, and in general just a way scarier atmosphere with more disturbing enemies. I mean, don't get me wrong, in my opinion the games are fantastic and fun, but I can see how many people have rather something fun and relaxing like in Resident Evil than something very creepy and depressing like in Silent Hill. Another reason is Resident Evil's content advantage, which is a bit unfair because Silent Hill got obviously less content because it was less popular, but it's still a reason in my book. There are close to 30 Resident Evil games, the real-life adaptations, CG movies, novels and comics. There's so much content that one could easily consume nothing but Resident Evil related media for a decent amount of time without the need of replaying or rewatching anything, although that might be preferable in the case of certain releases. Silent Hill has a good amount of content as well, but simply can't reach the numbers of Resident Evil. There are less than half of the games, with most not reaching the quality of Resident Evil, and way less movies, comics and novels. Even if we consider the slight head start of Resident Evil, considering the first Silent Hill released after the first two IEs were already released and well established, the output difference is massive and therefore Resident Evil has a way easier time to attract new fans because there are simply way more opportunities. Furthermore, Capcom's marketing is arguably miles ahead as well, especially if we look at the shit marketing the Silent Hill 2 remake received. Instead of promoting it properly, they showed bad and outdated versions of the game in the trailers and let a lot of the hype die with complete radio silence for well over a year. In contrast, Capcom releases great trailers literally half a year before release and drops further gameplay and story details regularly from that point onwards until the game releases. So in conclusion, the reasons why Resident Evil is more successful than Silent Hill are down to it being more appealing to a bigger audience, releasing more and higher quality games, and having not completely incompetent at the top of the management. Yeah, I think that sums it up pretty well. Thanks for watching! What do you think of the reasons and which franchise do you prefer? Please tell me in the comments. I would also appreciate if you subscribe, like and share the video if you enjoyed it. Thank you and see you next time.